The raging inferno hellscape that is Los Angeles isn't just burning down massive numbers of homes, billions of dollars of structures, but also hastening the absolute destruction of the lamestream, going extinct dinosaur media, and perhaps nobody has done more damage to themselves in the last 48 hours than Jon Stewart. Today we'll break down what he said, what the reality is, and why people are now flooding to the next-gen new media you're listening to right now.
Could have saved more homes if we had more water, but no water in the Palisades. We had water in Malibu because those reservoirs were filled. It's basic stuff. We need water to put out fires.
Hello folks, welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we are going to bring clarity and sensibility to a situation in need of it badly. We're going to show you why the lamestream, going extinct dinosaur media needs to hasten its exit off the stage. And folks, we're going to make you feel good about yourself, because that's how it should be. We're going to get back to common sense ruling the day. The only common sense thing we ask of you is click that like button, and now sit back, relax, and here we go. This is out of Late Nighter. It's by Jed Rosenzweig, and it says, Jon Stewart returns to Daily Show tonight. Jordan Klepper to host Tuesdays through Thursday. This was on the 13th. Jon Stewart had one day to show up and do a decent job of covering the fires. Other than that, he doesn't work. Somebody else comes in and does the job for him. He's the Daily Show host. He's been back maybe a year exactly. He shows up and somebody else comes in the rest of the week. Must be a cushy gig, right? Jon Stewart will be back behind the Daily Show anchor desk tonight. This was on Monday. We'll show you what he said. Says this week's Tuesday through Thursday host will be Jordan Klepper. It was 26 years ago this week that Jon Stewart hosted his very first episode of The Daily Show. Talks about, would we see him acknowledge the anniversary on the show on Monday. So let's see what Jon Stewart did. Out of The Hollywood Reporter, James Hibbard, the author. Jon Stewart rips Los Angeles wildfires response critics. What the blank is wrong with you? Folks, that's what we're asking about the mainstream media. That's what we're asking about the legacy dinosaur media. That's what we're asking about Jon Stewart and all of his cohorts. Jon Stewart's a funny guy. Really funny guy. Great comedian. And he's had his times when he's really done a good job of pointing out hypocrisy and aiming his ire in the correct direction. In this case, I think he failed, and he failed badly. The Daily Show host unloaded on conservatives seeking to take advantage of the wildfire disaster while adding about LA Mayor Karen Bass. I'm not saying she's Churchill. Now, pay close attention to how this is framed, because conservatives are not seeking to take advantage of the wildfire disaster. It's a disaster. Now, you could find a handful of people across the entire country who want to take advantage of this. Maybe the giant corporations that want to come on and buy up all the land and build houses and build complexes now that everybody's stuff has been reduced to rubble. They're the bad people, but conservatives, I don't think, are part of that. And I'm not here to defend conservatives or moderates or liberals or anybody. Here's what he said. On Monday night's episode of Comedy Central's The Daily Show, Stewart laid into conservative critics of California leadership. Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass have been particularly targeted due to some of their preparedness decisions about the fires. Preparedness. Preventability. These are the words of the day, folks. Preparedness. Preventability. Remember them. As well as their public reactions after the worst blaze in the city's history broke out. The multiple fires have killed 24 people. Knocked down, I'm going to add this, knocked down an area larger than Manhattan, larger than Walt Disney World, larger than the entire city of Paris. Gone. Stewart, by the way, before I go any further, if that happened, then maybe somebody is to blame for that. And maybe that's where we should be focused on. Stewart particularly took aim at congressional Republicans seeking to attach wildfire aid to a federal debt limit increase, and saying Democratic leaders in California need to agree to make changes to the policies first. And it goes on to say, I expect there will be strings attached to the money that's ultimately approved. There can't be a blank check on this. Wyoming Senator John Barrasso. Now, here was Stewart's response, and then we're going to play what Barrasso actually said. And this is going to once again pull back the veil on the mainstream media and what they do. And what they do is they lie. It's Hoax Central Station. And Jon Stewart is the man who's saying, I'll take you back to a place called Hoax. The problem now, this is Jon Stewart, not myself. The problem now is Republicans appear to want to attach their I told you so's as a condition of funding California's disaster relief, Stewart said. What the blank is wrong with you? Really, Senator from Alabama, the state near the bottom in math, reading, and test scores? Next time you get hit by a hurricane, why don't we have a little parent-teacher conference to say that if you got your scores up, you would get the money? Or actually, let's not do that because you'll get the money anyway, because we're not psychos. That is psychotic. So Stewart is claiming that a hurricane is the same as the annual wildfires that have been blamed on complete and utter mismanagement. And this mismanagement, by the way, is to such degree that Hollywood is unlikely to recover for decades from this. California is unlikely to recover for decades from this. But Stewart says that a hurricane, which has no human influence whatsoever, and which might strike once every 10 to 20 years in a devastating way to a population center in Alabama, Stewart is saying that that is the same as the wildfires, which there was no water. There was no water. It would be like a hurricane hitting Alabama or Florida, and there's not a single bucket truck to come back and fix the power lines because nobody thought bucket trucks mattered anymore. So let's hear what he's actually critiquing. I want you to hear this. So who is this awful, terrible Senator Barrasso? And by the way, I don't know his voting record. I also find it interesting he's from Wyoming. So, interesting that. Says, I expect there will be strings attached to money that is ultimately approved, and it has to do with being ready the next time because this was a gross failure this time. Here's what he said. Here's what Jon Stewart is ripping, folks, and saying that it's a told you so moment.
Do you expect, though, that Congress and Republicans will still help these Americans in need, even if they don't like their local politics and the party?
I expect that there will be strings attached to money that is ultimately approved, and it has to do with being ready the next time because this was a gross failure this time.
A gross failure this time. In other words, we don't want this suffering to happen again. That seems reasonable to me. The strings that are attached are not to crazy things. It's not raise your test scores in your public schools. It's not get the correct amount of stipends or change the way that you're affecting your police department. None of that. It's if we give you this money, you got to do the basics. Water has to be in the fire hydrants. You got to have the reservoirs maintained. The brush that is essentially a tinderbox creating situation, clean it. Like these are basics. We're not talking about advanced environmental forestry issues. We're talking about you got to have water. Here's Jon Stewart again. Says, I can do the Daily Show thing. I can run down all the Congress people and senators on the right calling for conditions on disaster aid that absolutely had the opposite view when it was their state on the line. I'm not even going to do it because red states are always the tragic victims of circumstance outside of their control, and Democrats always vote for their aid, whereas blue state disasters are a function of their flawed morality and policy. And if we help blue state survivors, what message will that send? You know, it's funny to me, the Biden administration has basically said, with 5 days left to go, that they'll cover the full cost of everything to do with California, period. Meanwhile, the residents of North Carolina, where an absolute once in a every other century situation happened, where the eye of a hurricane traveled up into North Carolina, this never happens, went straight up a river gorge, flooded the river gorge, and thus destroyed everything along that river gorge. Those people got $700 to rebuild each. I think those are categorically different responses. So I think Jon Stewart is being at least hypocritical and probably greatly misleading. If the red side of the aisle was declaring that you had to do X, Y, and Z to get the money, and it was completely unrelated, I'd be right there. That would be unkind, unfair, and inappropriate. But the idea that what they're going to do is come in and say, listen, this was preventable. This is incompetence that has led to suffering. Therefore, here are the conditions for you to get the money. The hydrants must have water. The reservoirs must be maintained. The brush must be cleaned and cleared. That's basic stuff, folks. Now, this is what is resulting from the hysterics of the mainstream media continuing to try the hoax strategy. And Jon Stewart, I think, is in the hoax strategy camp right now. Tim Pool says, I just found out that Timcast in real life has double the ratings of Jimmy Kimmel in the key demographic, and now I feel bad for ragging on the little guy. My response, of course, is new media. I'm not here to tell you to subscribe to Tim Pool, but you can if you'd like. Timcast IRL. Go subscribe to those if you want to. I'm here to tell you that if you have the false impression that people like Jimmy Kimmel and Jon Stewart are the leaders of the culture right now, you don't understand what's happening. The conversation has moved. The spotlight is different. It's here, it's there, it's everywhere on YouTube. It's on the Green Machine, it's on X. It is not on the legacy dinosaur media. And by the way, why are senators still going on Face the Nation over on CBS? Why are they still doing this? You want to go talk and have people listen to you? Go to Joe Rogan. Go to Megyn Kelly. Go to PBD. Go to Timcast. Go to the Young Turks. Go to All In. Come here. Let me show you what's really happening. So you heard Jon Stewart. He's furious, right? Because the condition is, we'll give you the aid, but you have to be prepared next time, because this is not just a natural disaster. And by the way, I watched Film Threat the other day. I want to give them a shout out. They had Robert Meyer Burnett on, they had Alan Ng on, they had Chris Gore, a bunch of others. Derek Anderson, we love all those people. They had a very nuanced discussion of what could have, caused the fires and what the solutions are in the future. And that's a great conversation to have. But it's clear that you need water. And it's clear there wasn't enough water. And it's clear that the bigger the fire gets, the more water you need. But there was a point when the fire wasn't at that level, and water would have been helpful. And apparently there was no water. So let's find out now. We're going to go to X. Elon Musk has signal boosted this. We're going to go to X. And I want you to hear what's really happening, because X is where you can go to find out what's happening. Same thing with YouTube. The legacy dinosaur media simply does not do this. They do power narratives. The truth is not their currency. Avery Warwick says, I interviewed a Los Angeles firefighter with 20 plus years of service. The truths I found are harrowing. Here's the full thing she says. I'll stop and give commentary as is warranted.
Unlike Gavin, I am in the pursuit of truth. So I've taken it upon myself to interview boots on the ground. I have interviewed members of the Los Angeles Fire Department, and the truths I have found are harrowing. Why is Gavin so adamant about pushing this narrative that they did not run out of water in the Pacific Palisades? Well, it's because they did. A firefighter told me that he was on a street in the Pacific Palisades, and not only did he run out of water, but they had insufficient hydrants. So he explained to me that the standard distance between residential homes is usually less than 1,000 feet. And in this case, these homes were very large. We're talking like 15,000 square foot mansions, and hydrants that were over 1,000 feet apart.
By the way, a 15,000 square foot mansion, I'm just running the numbers in my head, that would be about a 16 bedroom home. And you don't have hydrants near 16 bedroom homes. These are monumental lapses in governance. This is why the new media is so important. This is why the Jon Stewarts need to move out. They need to be sunsetted. Not by fiat, not by government regulation, but by the market. Because when you come here, we'll tell you what we believe is really, really, really going on. And Jon Stewart's going to tell you stuff that all you got to do is peek behind the curtain just a little bit and say, no, this is not as you're presenting it. You are gaslighting us, sir. And what we needed was water, not gaslighting. And it is time, I think, given that Hollywood will never be the same, given that Los Angeles will never be the same, given that this will hasten the exit and the exodus of companies out of California to other places, forever changing the entertainment landscape, I think that there need to be major federal and independent investigations from outside of California. No California firms brought in for this one. And if it is warranted, tribunals. Because this is insanity. These people look good, but they are corrupt to the core, some of them.
In addition to that, running out of water and these hydrants being too far apart, these hydrants only had a 2.5-inch wharf hydrant instead of 4 inches, which means the diameter of the hose. This means that these firefighters did not have sufficient fire flow to extinguish these fires. He told me that they were doing the best that they could and they were making good effort, but they could have saved more homes by putting up a water curtain, which would have allowed them to save the exposure of houses. But they couldn't because they ran out of water in the Pacific Palisades. He highlighted that he didn't want to diminish the fact that this fire behavior was insane and it was the worst he's ever seen. We could have saved way more structures than we did if we had water. In addition to that water reservoir being empty in the Pacific Palisades, holding 117 million gallons of water, they tarped it when they never should have for environmental reasons and evaporation. But
just a thought here, folks. Florida prepares for hurricanes. South Carolina prepares for hurricanes. We have seen states and situations where not only did the locals, but the federal government was not at all prepared for hurricanes. California has wildfires and earthquakes. That's what California should prepare for, and they should be the best in the world at responding to those things. Other states, they have other stuff they have to deal with, right? I would imagine that states along the Mississippi River, they probably at some point had to deal with flooding. I would imagine that states that are out in the desert, they probably have to deal with water management. And so if the money's going to be given, if billions and billions of dollars, if that's going to be given to California, and it's hard to say that that won't happen after Ukraine. But if billions and billions of dollars is going to be given to California, it seems to me that the stipulation should rightly be, you got to have water if we're going to give you this money. Like, you can't do this again where you don't have water. Now, can I verify every single thing that this young woman is saying? Of course I cannot. We'll listen to just a little bit more. This is the starting point, though. We recognize that there is a fog over the early investigatory efforts of citizen journalists and people trying to get to the truth. We recognize that sometimes things can be wrong. But this is the starting point. This is the leaping point. And people like Jon Stewart who want to create an emotional tribalism, they're just awful at what they do and what they incite. They are anti-truth. And I hope Jon Stewart gets it right in the future. I hope he comes back and says, the conservatives, the moderates, the mainstream, they want us to have water in the reservoirs and the hydrants if they're going to give us money. And that's a good thing.
Don't you think that evaporation should not supersede the need for helicopters to access the water and suck out water for fire suppression, for aerial help? That was out of the question because it was tarped when it was not meant to. I was also informed that the city, allegedly, did not consult with the fire department before they drained this reservoir. Let me read what he explained to me. He says that we are set up to run something called a master stream operations. This is where you're flowing upwards of 800 gallons a minute from a big water cannon on top of the rig. And in order to do that effectively, you have to be connected to a hydrant. It's highly effective. You can put out a ton of fire with it. Now, granted, this fire behavior was insane, and we're working to save every home we can. But in this instance, we could have saved more homes if we had more water, but no water in the Palisades. We had water in Malibu because those reservoirs were filled. It's basic stuff. We need water to put out fires.
We'll stop there, folks. Consider the difference in Malibu and the Palisades. Same sort of situation, totally different result. And so I think it's fair to ask, where was the water? Where was the water? Elon Musk, having seen this, says Gavin Newsom is a scumbag. Now, do I know if every single thing she got is right? No. Is it investigation time? You bet. If poor governance and incompetence and corruption and mismanagement resulted in the destruction of an area larger than Manhattan, larger than Walt Disney World Resort, larger than the city of Paris itself, then I'm sorry, Jon Stewart. I'm sorry, legacy dinosaur media. It's not, to the response critics, what the blank is wrong with you. It's what the blank is wrong with everybody defending this. It's investigation time. It's accountability time. Let's get started. Folks, that's the video for today. We hope now you know more than you did before and that it came from a common sense, sensible, center kind of position where you can take it, you can do your own investigations, you can find out what you need to know, and then you'll know how you want to approach conversations about this in the future. When we do that, when we aim for truth, then you are equipped to help you select the future governors, the future politicians who maybe will make better decisions than those that we have seen in California. All right, folks, help us out. Click that like button, share, subscribe, click it, and stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And folks, we'll see you real soon. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your time with us. It's an honor every time we get to be a part of your day. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Huh. Hey, Floral. I just wanted to let you know I have a New Year's resolution.
Okay.
Although, I don't want to say it. It might be like a wish. If I speak it, I'll break it.
Usually a resolution is spoken out loud so you can be held accountable to it. Like, my resolution is to go to thatparkplace.com and be ready to see its new facelift, and to make sure I'm always subscribed to guys like Jonas and Pro, Culture Casino, Lorena Creole, John Trent, all of them.
Well, I actually got Slade Wilson to also make a resolution.
What's that?
I'd get in too much trouble if I repeated it. He took it way further than I feel comfortable repeating.
Well, that's probably a good call. But, what's yours?
It's not to say anything mean about Jonas.
How do you plan to do that? You're an idiot.